Have you ever laid in bed at the end of a long day, completely exhausted, only for your brain to switch on the moment your head hits the pillow? Suddenly you're not resting, you're replaying conversations, you're running through tomorrow's to-do list, thinking of all the things that you didn't get done. And then, as if it wasn't enough, your brain starts throwing in worst case scenarios just to keep it interesting. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. That was me for years and it nearly broke me. Welcome to the Lead Well channel, where we explore the inner world of leadership, well-being, and what it means to build a business that doesn't break you. Hi, my name's Trevor. I run an award-winning restaurant and cocktail bar. I didn't come from a hospitality background. I built the business from the ground on up, learning in real time. And while the business thrived on the outside, on the inside, I was carrying more than I could ever possibly handle. There was a period when I dreaded going to bed, not because I wasn't tired, I was exhausted, but because I knew what would happen the moment I closed my eyes. My brain would wake up. It would start running through every possible thing that could go wrong tomorrow, every mistake I might have made today. It would catastrophize, spinning small worries into major crises. And it wasn't just thoughts about the business, it was everything. Money, relationships, decisions I hadn't made, conversations I replayed endlessly. The nights became this battlefield where I tried to force myself to sleep while my own head attacked me with spirals that I just couldn't escape. I used to think the solution was control, that I needed to control my thoughts, stop them, beat them back. But the harder I tried, the worse it got. What I eventually realized was this: the answer wasn't control. The answer was release. For me, that release started with a pen and a notebook. In this video, I'm going to show you a step-by-step process I call the anxiety catcher. It's a simple worksheet that helps you break spirals, get your thoughts out of your head, and finally give you some peace. We'll look at why writing interrupts the loop, how to set up a thought diary that actually works, and how a daily journaling habit can stop the backlog of worries from piling up. I'll also share how Daniel Priestley's 3 brain model helped me understand why overthinking feels so relentless, and what to do when your entrepreneur brain is dragging you through highs and lows that you can't escape. But before we get into that, let me say this. If you're carrying everything in your head, that's not a leadership system. That's a recipe for burnout. And that's exactly what my business and wellness quiz shows you. Where the pressure is coming from and what to do about it. You can take it for free and the link is below. You carry a lot and you deserve the tools and the support to carry it well. So why do these spirals happen? Why does your brain seem to attack you the second that you stop moving? It comes down to something called open loops. Your brain is wired to remember unresolved things. If there's something unfinished, an email you haven't sent, a bill you need to pay, a conversation that you feel uneasy about, your brain doesn't like leaving it hanging, so it keeps it active, it keeps it spinning. During the day, when you're busy, you don't notice as much, but at night, when there are no distractions, the volume gets turned up, and that's when the spirals come. Your brain is basically saying, don't forget this, don't let it drop, keep it alive. And here's the cruel part: the more you try to push those thoughts away, the louder they get, because your brain thinks, hang on, this is important, you're ignoring it, better repeat it again. That's why lying there telling yourself to stop thinking never works. You're fighting your own biology. So what does work? Write it. When you write down a thought, something powerful happens. Your brain recognizes, okay, this is captured. It's not going to be forgotten. I don't need to keep it active. That's why the simple act of writing can interrupt the loop. It externalizes the thought. It moves it from rumination into processing. And it's not just about the words. The physical act of writing engages different neural pathways than thinking. You're slowing the thought down, you're giving it structure, you're forcing it into a language. That shift alone is enough to break the cycle. This is why therapists, coaches, and productivity experts all keep coming back to journaling and thought diaries. It's not about being poetic. It's not about keeping a record for history. It's about freeing your brain from carrying everything all the time. And that's where the anxiety catcher comes in. I built this process during some of my worst nights, and I still use it now. It's simple, but it works because it gives your brain exactly what it needs. Reassurance that the thought is captured and structured. So here's how it goes. Step 1, you write down the thought exactly as it comes up. You don't filter it, you don't judge it. If the thought is, I'm going to lose everything, just write that down. Step 2, ask, what am I afraid will happen? This gets the catastrophe on paper. Often the fear feels bigger in your head than it looks when it's in writing. Step 3, ask what's most likely to happen. This grounds the thought in reality. Your brain moves from imagination to probability. Step 4, you ask, can I do something about this? And if yes, note the action. If no, accept it as outside of your control. Step 5, Close with, it's written down, I don't need to carry it in my head anymore. That last line is key. It's a signal to your brain that this loop is closed and you can rest now. But here's the thing, if you only do this when you're already spiraling, you're always playing catch up. And that's where the daily journaling comes in. I started journaling because I was desperate. I couldn't keep going into every night with my head exploding. And what I found is that I gave my brain space to unload every day. There was less backlog waiting for me at night. Journaling became this ritual where I could dump everything out, the worries, the to-do lists, the frustrations, and even the wins that I didn't want to forget. It wasn't fancy, it was just a notebook where my thoughts could live somewhere other than my head. It's in fact this one here. You can see, just plain paper, space for my pen. The benefits were huge. I slept better, I was calmer during the day, I stopped forgetting things because they were written down, and I noticed patterns in my thinking, like how often I catastrophized about money or staff when in reality things usually worked out fine. That awareness alone reduced the power of the spirals. Here's something I want every leader to know. Your brain is not designed to be a storage unit. It's designed for creativity, for problem solving, for making connections. But too many of us treat it like a filing cabinet. We expect it to remember who we need to call, what invoice is due, the 3 things we promised a team member, and the 6 things we can't forget tomorrow. That's why we feel overwhelmed. We're using our brain for the wrong job. By externalizing into journals, planners, or task lists or worksheets, you free your brain to do what it's actually good at. And that shift alone can change your whole experience with leadership. Now, I want to share something that helped me understand why overthinking feels so intense, especially in hospitality leadership. Daniel Priestley talks about how we have 3 types of brain: the lizard, the monkey, and the entrepreneur. The lizard brain is all about survival, fight or flight. It's the voice that says, you're not safe, something's going to go wrong. The monkey brain is social. It worries about what people think, it replays conversations, it compares, it stresses about whether you belong, it likes the normal, repetitive jobs that you do day to day. And the entrepreneur brain, this is the one most leaders know well. It's the big picture, future-driven, chasing highs, chasing growth. It gives you incredible energy and vision, but it also drags you through the most extreme highs and brutal lows. Hospitality amplifies this. One day you're flying because the restaurant is packed, the reviews are glowing, the energy is buzzing. The next day you're crushed because the supplier let you down, the numbers don't add up, or the team is falling apart. Living in that roller coaster is exhausting, and when you combine it with the lizard and monkey brains chiming at you all night, warning you of danger and replaying every awkward moment, you get the perfect storm for spirals. So we've got these 3 brains running the show: the lizard, the monkey, and the entrepreneur. And if you're anything like me, you've felt them all fighting for control. The lizard says, you're in danger, everything could collapse. Whereas the monkey says, you embarrass yourself, everyone thinks you're failing, just go back to somewhere safe and do things repetitively in a job that you don't have to think about. And the entrepreneur says, we've got to build bigger, faster, better right now. It's no wonder sleep feels impossible. Your head isn't just busy, it's a boardroom meeting of 3 different brains, none of them agreeing and all of them convinced that they're right. This is where the anxiety catcher comes in. It's not just about writing thoughts down, it's about translating what each brain is screaming into something more structured and something manageable. And here's how it works in practice. When the lizard brain panics, the business is going to collapse tomorrow, you write it down and then you ask, what am I afraid will happen? You capture the catastrophe and then you ground it. What's most likely to happen? Suddenly the lizard calms. It sees the evidence. And when the monkey brain replays, that staff member hates me now because of what I said, you write it down and then you ask, what's most likely to happen? You bring it back to perspective. One conversation doesn't define a relationship. When the entrepreneur brain spirals, we should open 3 new venues next year, or we're falling behind. You capture it. Then you ask, is there something I can do about this right now? If the answer is no, you park it. You tell your brain, this belongs on tomorrow's planning list, not tonight's worry list. The worksheet becomes this translator. It takes emotional noise and turns it into structured thought. And once it's written down, your brain can finally let it go. But here's the bigger shift. Daily journaling stops the entrepreneur brain from running you ragged. Hospitality leadership is full of extremes. One Friday night, you're riding a high because the place is buzzing, guests are raving, and the team is flowing like clockwork. By Monday morning, you're crushed by a sudden cancellation, a supplier issue, or a quiet service that tanks the week's numbers. The entrepreneur brain feeds on those extremes. It exaggerates the highs and magnifies the lows. Journaling is like a ballast on a ship. It steadies you. And when you journal daily, you capture the highs so they're celebrated without needing to keep replaying them in your head. And you capture the lows so they're processed without needing to carry them in your gut. That balance stops you from being whipped around by emotional weather. You start to find even more keel. For me, this was life-changing. I used to get stuck in both directions. On the highs, I'd go into overdrive, making huge plans and taking on way too much and then burning myself out trying to keep up. On the lows, I'd collapse inward, telling myself it was all falling apart, fearing the worst and unable to see beyond the dip. Journaling gave me perspective. I could look back and see patterns, how the lows passed quicker than they felt, how the highs were often followed by dips, how things weren't as catastrophic or as miraculous as they seemed in the moment. That perspective changed how I led. It made me less reactive, more grounded, and it meant that when I went to bed, I didn't have to fight my own thoughts so much because they were already captured on paper. I said this earlier, but it's worth repeating. Your brain is not a storage unit. Think about it. If you try and carry tomorrow's to-do lists, today's mistakes, last week's arguments, next month's deadlines, and your entire team's problems in your head, of course you're going to feel overwhelmed. Your brain is designed for creativity, problem solving, connection. It works best when it's not clogged up with admin. That's why tools like the anxiety catcher and daily journaling and planners and task lists aren't just nice extras, they're essential. They free up the brain power and they give you back energy. And as a leader, that energy is your currency. It's what your team feels. It's what drives your business forward. Now let's bring this back to hospitality just for a second. This industry is relentless. You're dealing with long hours, constant people management, financial stress, and the unpredictability of service. One bad review can ruin your night. One quiet week can wipe out your month. No other industry I know has the same intensity of highs and lows in such short cycles, and those cycles feed the overthinking trap. That's why practices like journaling and structured thought diaries aren't luxuries for hospitality leaders, they're survival tools. When you manage your entrepreneur brain, when you stop it from swinging you wildly between highs and lows, you protect yourself from burnout and you create space to lead with clarity. And here's something interesting. This isn't just for you, that you can use the anxiety catcher with your team. When a staff member comes to you spiraling, worried about a mistake or anxious about their role, walk them through the same steps. Write the thought, name the fear, ground it in reality, ask if there's action they can take, and then close the loop. Not only does that help them, it models healthy thinking. It shows your team that spirals are normal, but they don't have to control you. And for anyone wondering if this is just fluffy self-help, here's the science. Studies show that expressive writing reduces anxiety, it lowers stress, and even improves physical health markers. Writing externalizes internal stress. It reduces the load on working memory, which is exactly what's overloaded during spirals. In other words, your brain isn't lying when it feels lighter after writing. It actually is. This all ties back to my lead well approach. Look inward. Notices when your thoughts are spiraling instead of ignoring them. Establish rhythm, build journaling into your daily structure so you're not always playing catch up. Align your energy, freeing up brain power for leadership, not storage, and direct with clarity, leading from calm, not from panic or overreaction. These aren't just ideas, they're practical shifts that change how you experience leadership. So let's bring it all together. Overthinking spirals happen because the brain hates open loops. It keeps replaying unresolved things, especially at night. You can't control those thoughts by force, but you can release them by writing. The anxiety catcher gives you a simple process. Write the thought, capture the fear, ground it in reality, and decide on the action. Close the loop. Daily journaling stops the backlog building up. It steadies the entrepreneur brain so you're not dragged through the extremes. And in hospitality, where highs and lows are amplified, those practices aren't optional. They're essential to leading well. I want to end on this. For a long time, I thought my overthinking was a flaw. That it meant I wasn't strong enough to lead, that everyone else had it together and I was just weak. But what I've learned is this: overthinking is just your brain trying to help. It's the lizard trying to keep you moving forward. The trick isn't to shut them up, it's to give them a channel, a way of being heard without letting them run your life. For me, that channel was writing and it changed everything. So if you're lying awake tonight, spiraling through every worst case scenario, remember this: you don't need to carry it all in your head. Write it down, catch the thought, close the loop. Give yourself permission to rest, because leadership isn't about carrying everything. It's about knowing what to release and when. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a subscribe. It helps me, it helps the channel, and it helps people like us find the content that really matters. As always, I'd love to remind you that you matter too. Don't forget that.